Tonight, on First at 9 this Wednesday, the 5th of March 2025. Tourism and fisheries. Government to introduce a contributory pension scheme for the tourism sector and a new insurance program for the fisheries community. Strike on hold. Health sector trade unions temporarily call off tomorrow's planned strike, but warns of further union action on March 17th if government fails to meet their demands. Path to progress. President holds discussions with key officials on Sri Lanka's critical infrastructure and revenue strategies with a focus on implementing stricter laws to address inefficiencies. Debt service resumed. Sri Lanka has officially resumed debt servicing to the China Development Bank, confirms the IMF. However, debt restructuring negotiations with HSBC and Hamilton Reserve Bank are still pending.
Chilo Dairy, Sri Lankawama Kiren Perata. ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟම ඇති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
කන්ට පරිස්සම් කරගත්තොත්
අපි පරිස්සම්.
ඉතින් මොකටද නිකන් නාගන්නේ? ස්වදේශී කොහොඹ ලෙමන් ග්‍රාස් අද කාලෙට ෆ්‍රෙෂ්ම විසඳුම.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9, brought to you by Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now, President Anura Dissanayake says stringent laws must be enforced to eliminate inefficiencies within Sri Lanka customs. The head of state made this statement during a discussion with senior officials of Sri Lanka Customs today. Meanwhile, during a separate discussions with officials of the Inland Revenue Department, President Dissanayake emphasised that the full responsibility for collecting the total tax revenue targeted for this year lies with the Inland Revenue Department. President Anura Dissanayake today participated in a discussion with senior officials of Sri Lanka Customs at the Presidential Secretariat. The President stated that structural reforms will be implemented within Sri Lanka Customs to establish an institutional framework that aligns with contemporary needs. Critical issues such as inefficiencies, fraud, corruption and public dissatisfaction with the current functioning of the Customs Department were raised, and in response President Dissanayake emphasised the need to adopt new technologies aimed at accelerating departmental operations and enhancing service delivery efficiency. The new restructuring plans for the department were also discussed, during which the President directed officials to enforce stringent laws aimed at eliminating inefficiencies within Sri Lanka Customs. The President also highlighted the necessary measures that the Customs Department must adopt to achieve this year's revenue target. Meanwhile, President Dissanayake also participated in a discussion with officials of the National Physical Planning Department. The President emphasised that systematic urban planning can transform Sri Lanka into an attractive tourist destination and directed officials to develop city planning initiatives that embody Sri Lankan identity in their implementation. The government's approach to developing both urban and rural areas and enhancing Sri Lanka's economy through a focus on the rural economy was also discussed, with the President emphasising the significance of preserving the identity of rural culture and the livelihoods of the rural populace throughout the development process. President Dissanayake also held a meeting with officials of the Ceylon Electricity Board, during which an in-depth discussion took place regarding a sustainable long-term strategy for the energy sector. Energy conservation was also discussed. The President's attention was drawn to the maintenance of an uninterrupted power supply and the current and future prospects of the energy sector. Meanwhile, during a meeting with officials of the Inland Revenue Department, President Anura Dissanayake emphasised that the full responsibility for collecting the total tax revenue lies with the department. During the discussion, extensive attention was given to the strategies required to achieve the targeted revenue for this year. The President emphasised the necessity of a more interventionist approach than the current mechanisms in place to recover uncollected tax revenue. The maternal grand-aunt of Yoshitha Rajapaksa, Daisy Forrest, was released on bail today after being arrested and produced before the Kaduwela Magistrates Court. Forrest was arrested by the Criminal Investigation Department this morning in connection with the investigation into the source of nearly 60 million rupees held in Yoshitha Rajapaksa's bank accounts. Daisy Forrest, a grand aunt of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's second son Yoshitha Rajapaksa, who had been named as a suspect in connection with an investigation into possible money laundering, was summoned before the Criminal Investigation Department this morning. Following interrogation, Daisy Forrest was arrested by CID officials and was produced before the Kaduwala Magistrates Court. Since 2016, the Criminal Investigation Department has been conducting investigations against Yoshitha Rajapaksa. The investigations were launched as Rajapaksa failed to provide a justifiable explanation as to the source of over 59 million rupees found in his bank accounts. Further investigations revealed that these funds were deposited in joint accounts with Daisy Forrest, and as a result, Forrest was named as a suspect in the investigation into the source of the funds. Additionally, she was charged with violating Section 3(1) of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act No. 5 of 2006. Meanwhile, when Forrest was produced before the Kaduwala Magistrates Court today, President's counsel Sampath Mendis, who appeared on behalf of suspect Daisy Forrest, inquired if the Criminal Investigation Department would object to granting bail to the suspect. CID officials stated that they would not object to the suspect being granted bail. Thereafter, President's counsel Sampath Mendis requested that the 97-year-old suspect be granted bail in view of the condition of her health. Taking into account the facts presented, the Kaduwala Magistrates Court ordered Forrest to be released on 3 surety bonds of 5 million rupees each. The legal matter will be recalled on the 3rd of July this year.
ඔබ සමගින් පෙරට Union Assurance.
චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙත් මන අපේ සිග TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Don't waste time. Start your degree with pending A-level results this February with our partner universities. Call ACBT on 0117 699 499.
Less sugar, same great taste. From Melbourne.
Indian media reports that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is likely to visit Sri Lanka in April. According to reports citing Sri Lankan sources, the visit is still being finalized and is expected to take place in early April. The agenda is likely to focus on various issues including connectivity and economic ties. The invitation for this visit was extended by Sri Lankan President Anura Dissanayake during his trip to New Delhi in mid-December last year, which marked his first overseas visit after assuming office. The visit comes as both nations are engaged in discussions on multiple projects in power and energy, including grid connectivity, oil refinery projects and a direct oil pipeline to Sri Lanka. However, when contacted by Derana, the Sri Lankan Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that despite the reports, Sri Lanka has not received any official confirmation regarding the visit. Meanwhile, Indian fishermen who had been protesting the arrest of Indian fishermen and seizure of boats by the Sri Lankan Navy ended their 8-day-long strike. The strike was called off yesterday, a day after the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, M.K. Stalin, announced an increase in financial aid for fishermen whose boats were impounded in Sri Lanka, as well as assistance for the families of fishermen imprisoned in the island nation. The fishermen also ended their indefinite fast, which had begun on the 1st of March. Fishermen associations have urged the Indian government to facilitate a dialogue with fishermen leaders from Sri Lanka's northern province. They have emphasized the need for a permanent solution to provide relief to fishermen who have traditionally operated in the Pork Strait, the body of water separating Tamil Nadu from Sri Lanka's northern province. With the St. Anthony's Church Festival at Kachutiv scheduled for the 14th and 15th of March, Indian Fishermen Associations have decided to determine their next course of action after the event. Chairman of the National Transport Commission, Dr. Dilip Vitarna, says the NTC intends to make public transport a safe space for women. His comments came after the Transport Commission earlier this morning launched a program in conjunction with International Women's Day, urging passengers on public transport services to intervene against violence against women. Incidents of sexual harassment against women and girls on public transport are often reported. The Police Children and Women's Bureau is monitoring this issue, and as a result, the Ministry of Public Security took measures to deploy teams of plainclothes police officers to public transport services. Additionally, the 109 toll-free number was introduced to report sexual harassment and abuse against women and children. Meanwhile, today, a program to display stickers on public transport urging passengers to intervene against violence against against women commenced island-wide in conjunction with International Women's Day, which falls on the 8th of March. The National Transport Commission launched the program this morning at the PETA public bus stand. The matter was also discussed during a government media conference today.
අපේ දීර්ඝකාලීන ඉලක්කය පොදු ප්‍රවාහනයේ කාන්තාවන්ට ආරක්ෂිත අවකාශයක් බවට පත් කරන එක. ඉදිරියේදී බස්යක් ධාවනය වෙද්දී පර්මිට් එක ගන්න නම් CCTV සවි කරන්න ඕනේ. කාන්තා හිංසනය පමණක් නෙවෙයි බස් රථයේ සම්පූර්ණ ආරක්ෂාව සඳහාත් ඒක පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. පටන් අරන් තියෙනවා ඇප් එකක් හදන්න කාන්තා හිංසනය සම්බන්ධයෙන් මෙසේජ් එකක් එවන්න පුළුවන්. හදිසියක් නම් බටන් එකක් ඔබන එක.
2024 දී කාන්තාවන්ට එරෙහිව ලිංගික අතවර පොදු ප්‍රවාහනයේදී 289ක් වාර්තා වෙලා තියෙනවා. ලිංගික අතවර කිරීමේ කියන වරද පරිම අවුරුදු 5කට හෝ දඩයකට නැත්නම් මේ දෙකෙන්ම දඬුවම් කරන්න පුළුවන්.
Meanwhile, today, the Free Women Movement distributed leaflets in front of the Fort Railway Station under the theme Ending Violence Against Women.
Fast track your career from O-levels with eSoft.
ඩයබටිසෝල් සීනිවලින් පරිස්සම්වන ඔබට අමතක නොවන පෝෂණය.
කැලනි වයර් කිසිගින්නක් නෑ.
කිසිගින්නක් නෑ. කැලනි ෆයර් ෂීල්ඩ් වයර්.
Malibu chocolate cream, inguru and lemon puff. Less sugar, same great taste. From Malibu.
Responsibility to look after our health.
The best nutritional supplement for diabetic patients with no added sugar. Maliban Vitagen. Stay healthy for a good reason.
Welcome back. In Parliament today, Deputy Minister of Tourism Ruwan Derana announced that a contributory pension scheme will be introduced this year for individuals employed in the tourism sector. Meanwhile, Deputy Minister of Fisheries Ratna Gamage stated that a new insurance scheme to compensate fishermen for fully or partially damaged boats will be implemented this year. On a separate note, Minister of Health Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa commented on the health sector strikes scheduled for tomorrow. We have identified tourist attractions in the country and plan to develop basic infrastructure at these locations by allocating around 10 million rupees for each one. Additionally, under the Clean Sri Lanka project, we plan to establish several rest centres for tourists. Furthermore, this year we plan to introduce a social welfare program and a contributory pension scheme for individuals working in the tourism sector.
One of the main issues faced by the fisheries community is the fuel crisis, which has caused the industry to collapse. During the election, the government promised to provide diesel at 150 rupees per litre for the sector. However, there is no clear plan in place. While we have heard the funds were allocated, fishermen have not received any assistance for the past 3 months.
We have provided concessions on fuel amounting to 863 million rupees. When fishermen venture out to sea and face dangers, receiving compensation is not an easy task. Either the individual must perish or the boat must be completely destroyed for compensation to be granted. Therefore, we have designed a program to change this insurance structure. We have created a new insurance scheme to compensate fishermen for fully or partially damaged boats, which will be implemented this year.
I would like to clearly state that Minister Gamage launched a very successful protest. It was so impactful that I even called you that day, not knowing whether you were an NPP or JVP member. I was drawn to the protest and thought you were a suitable member to join us. After removing the taxes being paid to the treasury, eliminating commissions and payment to ministers, issues you yourself pointed out, and minimizing waste, why can't this relief be provided to the fishing community?
මෙතනදී තියෙනවා දීවර දිස්ත්‍රික්ක 15 ඉන්ධන සහනාධාරය මේ වෙනකොට ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා මිලියන 863ක්. මිලියන 3000ක් වෙන් කරා. මම මේක සභාගත කරනවා.
You have provided a 25 rupee concession per litre, but only the first installment has been received in some areas. There has been no further assistance for the last 4 months. I have brought bank statements as proof. What we are asking is for the promised 150 rupees relief, which is allegedly being used to pay 60 rupees to former minister Kanchana, 50 rupees for the port, and the 50 rupees being deducted by the central bank. This is what we are requesting.
කොහේවත්
I have never stated that diesel would be provided at 150 rupees. We have provided a 25 rupee concession per litre for multi-day fishing vessels with a limit of up to 300,000 rupees. For smaller boats, we have provided a concession of 9,375 rupees per boat. MP Vedarachi, we have given you assistance as well. 42,475 rupees for one of your boats even when you claim otherwise. Additionally, we have provided 62,500 and 42,500 rupees for your boats. You are still denying receiving these benefits. Meanwhile, Minister of Health Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa commented on the planned health sector strike tomorrow.
There are about 5,545 supplementary health service providers in the country. These services are critical for the health sector. In order to retain these professionals, the government has decided to provide them with a considerable salary increase. We have decided to increase salaries in 5 key sectors. A doctor in the grade 3 supplementary service currently earns 32,080 rupees when entering the field. This will be increased by 22,040 rupees to 54,120 rupees. For someone in grade 2 with a basic salary of 37,190 rupees, this will be increased by 26,120 rupees to 63,310 rupees. If someone is in grade 1 currently earning a basic salary of 58,590 rupees, it will be increased by 43,320 rupees to 101,910 rupees. We have also raised the hourly pay for overtime. The hourly rate for a grade 3 professional has increased from 210 rupees to 285 rupees, a rise of 75 rupees. We have increased the hourly rate of 250 rupees per hour for a grade 2 professional by 90 rupees to 340 rupees. Additionally, the rate of 300 rupees per hour will be increased by 115 rupees to 415 rupees for grade 1 professional. We have significantly increased these rates in April compared to March. We have also raised holiday allowances and increased annual increments by 80%. Additionally, the pay-as-you-earn tax system will be amended. We have provided a package that is sustainable given the current economic situation. If some union leaders are attempting to create confusion and stir up unrest, I urge these professionals to avoid getting involved. Your service is critical and I encourage you to report to work as usual tomorrow without participating in protest. Please accept the higher increments we have provided.
Meanwhile, the Federation of Health Professionals and the Government Nursing Officers Association, following discussions with Health Minister Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa today, temporarily called off their planned token strikes, which were set to be launched tomorrow. However, the trade union said island-wide strike actions would be launched on the 17th of March if government fails to address their concerns. Health sector trade unions have been accusing the government of reducing overtime benefits and holiday incentives provided to the health sector through the salary amendments proposed in this year's budget. Yesterday, the Federation of Health Professionals announced their decision to launch a 24-hour token strike action tomorrow in view of the government's inability to provide a proper solution to their concerns over the reduction of allowances. Accordingly, professionals in the fields of paramedical services, medical laboratory services, radiology, therapeutics, family health services, ophthalmology and entomology, as well as public health inspectors and dental technicians were to refrain from providing services to the public tomorrow. Against this backdrop, Health Minister Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa invited the Federation of Health Professionals for a discussion earlier this evening.
We finally agreed that the relevant matter be discussed with the President and the officials of the Ministry of Finance. The Health Minister provided us a written statement in this regard. He said that a discussion with the Finance Ministry will be organized before the 15th of this month to discuss matters pertaining to the reduction of the allowances provided to the health sector. However, if they fail to provide a solution during that meeting, we will launch a strike on the 17th of March at 7:30 in the morning.
Following the discussion with the Health Minister, the Federation of Health Professionals decided to call off their planned token strike action. Similarly, the Government Nursing Officers Association also called off their strike action scheduled for tomorrow, following a discussion with Minister of Health Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa earlier this evening.
The Health Minister pledged to grant the health sector promotions that were revoked through the budget. He said that the issues concerning overtime and holiday incentives will be informed to the President and then be communicated to the Treasury and the Central Bank. Afterwards, the President will make a statement on that. As a result, the Executive Committee of our alliance decided to temporarily call off tomorrow's strike action. However, we will launch a strike on the 17th if our concerns are not addressed by then.
ලබන 17 වෙනිදා ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා මේ සාකච්ඡාම එකඟතාවයන් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ නැත්තම්.
The International Monetary Fund says Sri Lanka has completed debt restructuring with the China Development Bank and began debt servicing in December last year. However, in its country report issued following the third review of the IMF Extended Fund Facility Programme, the global lender noted that Sri Lanka has yet to restructure its commercial debt with HSBC and the Hamilton Reserve Bank. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's financial advisor Clifford Chance, which supported the successful restructuring of external debt, stated that it remains committed to advising Sri Lanka through the final stages of the debt restructuring process in 2025. In the private sector and among Sri Lanka's external commercial creditors, holders of international sovereign bonds and the China Development Bank are considered the two major creditor groups alongside other commercial creditors. As of the end of 2023, Sri Lanka had $14.2 billion in debt to international ISB holders and $3.3 billion to the China Development Bank. In accordance with the agreements reached with ISB holders, Sri Lankan authorities launched the bond debt exchange on the 25th of November 2024 with a consent solicitation deadline of December 12, 2024. Following the enforcement of collective action mechanisms, 98% of ISBs were successfully exchanged. Regarding the China Development Bank, Sri Lankan authorities engaged in technical discussions, including in-person meetings in Colombo in May 2023 and in Beijing in October 2023 to reconcile their debt sustainability analysis models and advance negotiations. As a result, Sri Lanka completed its debt treatment with the China Development Bank and commenced payments on the restructured debt in December 2024. Meanwhile, in October 2024, Sri Lanka reached an agreement in principle with HSBC on a Sinosure-backed facility in line with the parameters of the IMF program. The remaining commercial debt yet to be restructured stands at less than $50 million. In 2023, the Hamilton Reserve Bank filed a motion for summary judgment in US courts regarding its exposure to the 2022 bond. A status conference was held on the 20th of April 2024, during which Sri Lanka was granted an additional month to complete its discovery process before deciding whether to grant a stay, allowing the country more time to finalize negotiations with bondholders. The court subsequently issued multiple stays, first until August 2024 and later until the 30th of November 2024. Sri Lanka has since filed a motion requesting a further extension. However, Hamilton Reserve Bank did not participate in the debt exchange offer in December 2024. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's legal advisor Clifford Chance, which supported the successful restructuring of external debt alongside financial advisor Lazard, stated that it remains committed to advising Sri Lanka through the final stages of its debt restructuring process in 2025. The state-run Ceylon Electricity Board has made an operating loss of 3 billion rupees in the December 2024 quarter and made a marginal net profit with the help of other income and gains. According to the interim accounts issued, the CEB's revenues plunged 28% to 111.8 billion rupees in the December 2024 quarter from 156.2 billion rupees. The cost of sales grew 49% to 116.2 billion rupees, leading to a gross loss of 4.49 billion rupees, down from 78 billion in 2023. For the full year, the CEB had made 11.7 billion rupees of foreign exchange gains. In the year to December, the CEB posted profits of 144 billion rupees, helped by forex gains and also a 26 billion rupee capital gain from the sale of shares of LTL Holdings to West Coast Power, reducing its debt. Now in a stock update, the Colombo Bourse closed in green today as a result of price gains in counters such as Sampath Bank, Bukit Dara and Haileys. The all-share price index increased by 1.87% to end at 16,166.53 points. Meanwhile, the S&P Sri Lanka 20 gained 1.56% to settle at 4,823.11 points. Market turnover crossed 5.1 billion rupees. The banking sector was the top contributor to market turnover, while the capital goods sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors closed as net sellers, offloading shares worth 1.25 billion rupees. Up next, we have Dilen Harishchandra from Capital Alliance with some thoughts on the current status of the economy in our next segment, Economic Outlook.
Headline inflation deepened to a deflation of 4.2% in February 2025. Core inflation eased to 0.7%. The construction sector grew as reflected in an expanding PMI. The average weighted prime lending rate dipped to 8.36%, while the call money rate stayed at 7.98%. Market liquidity improved with a surplus rising to 172.65 rupees billion. T-bill yields in the primary market fell slightly, while yields in the secondary market for T-bills and T-bonds remained stable. The Sri Lankan rupee depreciated by 1% against the US dollar. Gross official reserves were at 6,065 USD million. Exports increased by 8.5% to 1,053 USD million. Commodity prices saw tea rise to 4.08 USD per kilogram.
And that's all for tonight on First at 9. For the latest developments around the clock, stay in touch with Ada Derana, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.